In the year 2004, I made the 2-day road journey from Nairobi to Lodwar in Turkana County, Kenya. I was on my first missionary assignment to Lodwar Diocese as part of my seminary training with St. Patrick's Missionary Society. After the long journey by bus into this rather strange and hot region, I was very glad to meet a familiar face, a young man from the area who had just started his initial formation with St. Patrick's Society. His name is Patrick Esekon. St. Patrick's Fathers, or the Kiltegan Fathers, from Ireland, had been working in Turkana for decades. They were first allowed in to work on the famine relief program in the 1950s. In their heyday, the Kiltegans and the Catholic Church were the backbone of Turkana County with regard to education, health, water, evangelization, etc. With the internationalization of the society, it was a great joy to have Patrick Esekon join our ranks and get ordained a priest in the year 2013. This photo of Irish and African Kiltegans dancing at this ordination in Turkana did go viral and has become iconic in our memories. In this documentary, I would like to celebrate the good work Esekon is doing among my own people in the Diocese of Bauchi, Nigeria, as well as recall my short time ministering among his people in Turkana, Kenya. To get to Bauchi in northern Nigeria, where Esekon works, I have to first find my way to the city of Jos and be driven about 2 hours to Bauchi town. Driving for hours through long distances is a big part of missionary life. In no time, I see evidence of the beefed-up security to counter the terrorist activity of the dreaded Boko Haram. I am warned on time to hide away my camera lest I face embarrassment from the stern-looking Nigerian soldiers. As we head north towards Bauchi, I begin to sense a similarity between northern Nigeria and northern Kenya, even though Kenya lies lower by way of latitudes. Bauchi state sits on the Sudan and Sahel savanna regions. Whilst the Sudan savanna, bit of it in the south, has more vegetation and more rainfall, the Sahel savanna bit in the north is semi-arid, thorny, sandy, hilly and windy. A good percentage of the people here are pastoralists. Esekon himself will also agree with this similarity between his home, Turkana, and parts of Bauchi. There are a number of distinct ethnic groups in northern Nigeria in general. However, we only get to hear of the Hausa group, their language and culture because of their prominence. I am very glad to meet with all my brothers working in Bauchi Diocese. The 3 priests, John Kioi from Kenya, Vitalis Inyang from Nigeria, and Esekon himself, as well as students on their first missionary assignment, Julius Dokowe from Malawi and Vincent Kipngetich from Kenya. When all the brothers gather together from their different missions, there is a great joy and celebration. We support and console each other, listen to our stories, compare notes, and then return to our stations with more optimism. Our get-together in Bauchi brings back memories of the many get-togethers the Kiltegans had in Lodwar Diocese. Many Kiltegans claim that they could not have survived mission work without a social life and bonding among brothers. The main parish center for the Kiltegans in Bauchi is Wintin Dada, a short drive from Bauchi town itself. Esekon lives here with Father John Kioi, a volunteer priest from Nakuru Diocese in Kenya, and the seminarian Vincent Kipngetich. For the first time, I see the anti-terrorist barriers which is in every church in northern Nigeria today, made necessary because of the recent spate of bombings targeting churches. Esekon begins his day quite early with adoration and mass in one of the several outstations under the main parish of Wintin Dada. I am visiting the main parish on a weekday, but I still notice a good number of worshippers. Esekon exposes the Blessed Sacrament for a half-hour adoration and then the Holy Mass. I can't help but get lost in the artwork on the altar. The artist captures the diversity of peoples that are invited into God's kingdom, no one greater or more saved than the other. Another morning, we drive to Guru Outstation, which has a church and a school. I am told that many families in this area are those of retired soldiers, and so a good number come from other parts of Nigeria. The church in Guru is solid, well lit and designed. The congregation seem fulfilled to begin their day with the Eucharist and the Word of God. I noticed some children in bright colors attending the Mass. I am later told they are those boarding in the parish school.
They will kill and persecute. That the blood of all the prophets shed from
the language used for Mass this morning is English. In spite of my misgivings about certain aspects of Africa's colonial history, sometimes I can't help but acknowledge the role that colonial languages have played in, for instance, aiding a Kenyan missionary communicate with his Nigerian flock. After the Mass, we pose for a group photograph. I always feel privileged to freeze special moments like these in time and being able to tell the story behind the photograph.
Okay. Please, can you close that door?
We then visit families in the community. We begin with the home of Mama Hanatu, who lives with her son and his family. I'm told she should be well over 90. Mama Hanatu has a lot of stories to tell us of where she has lived and worked in her youth, as well as her long journey in the Catholic faith. I am struck by the personable and relaxed way with which Esekon engages Mama Hanatu, affirming her and assuring her of God's grace in this time of her life. Esekon conducts the whole visit in fluent Hausa. He is one of those lucky ones who are able to settle fast into foreign cultures and learn their language and their ways. At this stage, he is already fluent in 5 languages and counting. This reminds me of my own efforts to learn the Turkana language of Esekon's people. My big inspiration would have been the great success of our Irish brothers in learning difficult African languages wherever they went on the continent. The people let missionaries into their lives when they can communicate with them. Hanatu's son, a retired soldier, uses an empty artillery shell to wedge their front door. A chilling reminder of Nigeria's violent past, and also a reminder that we can indeed turn weapons into more useful instruments, as the book of Isaiah suggests. Another way for missionaries to get into people's lives is by eating the local food offered. Esekon stops at a roadside eating spot and is offered the local bean cake or akara, as Nigerians call it, and the local pap made from fermented corn. This gives him a chance to engage the women in conversation. Children will later join in this impromptu but heartfelt roadside Eucharist.
Gideon, take one.
I do have good memories of the food of Esekon's people back in Kenya. A missionary going visiting Kenyan families had to take food or tea offered in every house. Rejecting people's food is deemed offensive.
Our hope is that if time goes by, we can get the young people involved, maybe gather all these letters, papers and all this, and then recycle them.
After our roadside breakfast, Esekon shows me a lot of plastic waste by the road. In the year 2017, Kenya banned the sale and use of plastic bags in its attempt to save the environment. Esekon wishes we had the same here in Nigeria.
And make something out of it.
Do you think the law in Kenya can work in Nigeria of banning plastic bags?
It can, but it might take a while because it's also about these laws are introduced, but it takes a while before they're implemented. People have to be conscientized. Awareness has to be created, and before. But some of them use it also they burn them and they get fire or out of it. But again, the smoke,
smoke is dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. One bunch each is 50. Okay.
Another huge environmental problem in Bauchi is the cutting down of trees for use as cheap firewood. Esekon knows only too well that this firewood is ultimately not cheap. He has seen the unfortunate deforestation of his own local Turkana and the effect it has had on farming, grazing, the weather, etc. In my own time in Turkana, tree planting was emphasized and supported by the missionaries. Esekon's compatriot Wangari Maathai received a Nobel Peace Prize for planting millions of trees. Nigeria could use a bit of this green spirituality.